teach about creating a brand, selling your artwork in the real world. I'll give a little bit of a bio about, here, I'll make sure you get your stickers in your book. Well, I'll be giving a little bit of a backstory, and then we can get into the meat of the actionable steps. Thank you. Appreciate you all being here. So the first thing I just wanted to do, also a reason why I gave you all a book, is so you can write down brands that you like, creatives that you're into. You can just do a couple, either products that you like or are interested in, and then maybe some styles that you're into. And then we can kind of, once we get through this, we can, if you want, we can kind of talk amongst ourselves about kind of what you guys are into and what maybe avenues you want to go down, and then we can just do Q&A, so that's why I put that in there. But if you guys want to do that while we're talking. So I'll just do my timeline. So my early inspiration, probably like most of everybody, I've been creating / drawing my whole life. There wasn't ever a point where I wasn't, so I don't know how or why that happens in the world, but it does. And I don't think it's anything special. I think all kids do it. I think it's just action of if you're encouraged to keep doing that or not. Luckily, my parents were cool and encouraged me to do it. So as a little kid, I grew up on a farm, pretty isolated. Next neighbor was a few miles away. So I spent a lot of time drawing. That's what I did as a kid. I got in trouble a lot in school because all I did was draw instead of doing what I was supposed to do. So as a child, just cartoons. I'm a kid of the 80s. I was born in '79, so all my early inspiration was all the stuff that's nostalgia out like crazy now. But He-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, all that stuff was my early inspiration. Just soaking into my brain. I didn't even know it was cartoons making products, but I'm sure that's how it started, why I like to make products. And then as I got into high school, Simpsons, love the Simpsons, X-Men, early X-Men. Those were kind of my two. We had like 4 channels, so I really wasn't watching TV. I had a Nintendo, loved video games. But as far as creative stuff, I didn't really, it's the 90s, there wasn't internet, at least in the early 90s. And the 80s, there was no internet. So it was all TV or magazines. So that was kind of my inspiration there. And then high school, I was lucky enough, I had 2 art teachers. I had the one that was just teaching class to, I think maybe that was not his passion, but just an easy class. And then I had my really awesome teacher, Miss Matheson. She was like a real art teacher, really inspired me to keep going. We got to draw like with charcoal and all kinds of cool stuff. No computers, no digital stuff back then. And then obviously I was a child of the 90s, so I went to, what do you do when you graduate high school back then? I guess you go to college, that's what I thought you had to do. So I tried applying to a college, Nebraska. Thank God I didn't get in there. And then I found a college in Colorado, Denver, Colorado. So I went to college and it was basically a fine arts degree with a illustration tagged onto it. College was great. It was still the early, I graduated in like 2002, so it was still really early. We were learning we had only 2 digital art classes. We learned Quark Express, we learned Dreamweaver, all that old stuff. All my illustration classes were hand painting. So that's what we did in college. I learned a lot, had a lot of fun. I don't know how college is now, but our college then didn't really I feel like it didn't really set you up for the after world, real life. And then after college, that's where, I really struggled. I thought that I would be able to take my degree and just get some jobs. But that's not exactly what happened. I definitely struggled for a long time. In my early 20s, I was just emailing people. I was doing small jobs here and there for like local newspapers, magazines. It was nothing to make a living off of. I was still working a regular job. I was working in the construction industry, so I was doing it all after work. So it was probably, I didn't really get out of the construction industry until I was like 30 years old. And that's probably one of the first times I tried to like do my own thing. I didn't plan, I didn't save money. You probably figure out how that goes. Ended up being broke and living with my parents at 32. Really, really cool. Luckily they were nice and let me move back home and be a loser for a little bit. But I was able to, I was still doing freelance. I was doing a lot of band merchandise design. I did that for about a decade. That does not pay very well. So there's a few people that do, but most of that industry is pretty, you would think if you work in an industry like that where it's all based around creativity that they would really make that the main thing and pay you what you're worth, but that's a big no. So I did that for a long time, got really burnt out because I felt like that was kind of like where I fit in. I felt like that's the only place where I could like get actual money and reoccurring jobs. So I tried to go freelance the first time, probably around 30, 32, and that didn't work out because I was just doing that. I didn't save, I didn't do anything, I just jumped right into it because I was getting semi-regular work. I think it's a lot the same now, but it was like $150, $250, $300. Pretty terrible for what I think the first time that I realized that, I was like, I did a design, I went to a concert, and I like watched them make that much in like 2 seconds, and I was like, this is terrible. So I started working at a place where we created products for other people. That was kind of my first real art job. I was an art director, but really I was just managing production and doing some design work for clients. But we produced, T-shirts, pins, everything for clients of all different types. So I did that for about 4.5 years. And about 3 years into that, I was just like, why am I not doing this for myself? I have the connections. I wanted to sell. I started listening to Adventures in Design podcast back then. 10 years ago, it was a little different than it is now. It was all about selling and creating your own products and then like going to markets and selling your products, which I had never really thought about because I thought the only way to make money was to do freelance or get from clients, not make your own things and then sell them directly to people. So then I started doing that, and that is what I started doing markets. I met a friend of mine who was also doing a market with his wife. They were selling like ceramic potted plants and everything they'd made. And one time he was just like, would it be cool if you were in REI? And I was like, sure, that would be great. Not thinking that would ever happen. He just worked there, he wasn't the manager or anything. But that got the ball rolling on that. And then eventually a year later, they called me back. And I was able to go up there and pitch our brand. And eventually after that, they let us in. And then that's kind of what like took this off from just me and my wife on the weekends and friends going and doing markets and selling. That's what turned, like we were just in a 2-bedroom apartment. We were doing it all out of that, one of the bedrooms. And then as soon as we got that call, they were like, we want to put you in every location. And we were just like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Like I had never done that. I had no idea how to do any of that. But that's what really took this brand from being like, okay, we have to get out of the house. It took over the whole apartment. And we have to, actually find a place where we can have some people help. So originally we moved up to Fort Collins, Colorado, which is an hour north of Denver. It was in the basement of this house that we were renting. And I was like, first time I saw that, I was just like, I'm never gonna fill this up. This is the biggest thing we're ever gonna have. And then we had employees coming over, work in the basement. So that gets weird, obviously. So we did that for about 6 months and then we outgrew that. So I had to look for a warehouse. So I got a warehouse and more employees. And then eventually we moved into the larger warehouse that we're in now. But yeah, it's been a crazy journey, And if you guys like selling and making products, I hope that I can give you some info on how to do that today. I did it. I'm definitely nothing special. Definitely not the best artist in the world. I think you have to obviously be creative, but there's a ton of different things that go into actually starting a brand and then making it work. So let's get started into that. I think one of the biggest things when you're doing your own brand is, what are you interested in and what are you passionate about? I think anybody who's created a brand with any sort of longevity is it's based around your interests and your passions. For me, I really love the outdoors, going hiking and camping. Obviously don't do that as much anymore now. Child, business takes up all my time, but that's what I was interested in. That's what I've drawn off and on, and then I just kind of finally settled in on like a path and a thing that I was interested in. I think that really helps. Obviously, trends are okay, and there's plenty of people that make businesses off of trends, and I just don't know how long you have on that. How long is the trend gonna last? Might be a year, might be 5 years, might be 10 years. I think it's a big gamble. It's okay if you want to do that, but I feel like trends have a time and a place, and if you base your whole business around that, that can be, that could be faulty. If you're actually interested and passionate about it, then when it gets hard, you're not going to want to give up on it because it's something you care about. Obviously, the next most important thing, if you want to sell products, is, do you like making or selling products? For me, I think it took a little while, and like I was saying, as a kid, I think I kind of just like subliminally got that put into my head from advertisers and marketing. Was like, you see something and then you get a little action figure and you get to hold it, and then it's like, oh, that's so awesome. And I was always fascinated with like taking art from 2D and like creating a 3D object with that and being able to hold it and see it. And then so that's making, that's producing. Selling, now that's something like you don't have to love that at first. You're gonna have to learn to love it. It's definitely hard at first. Like I remember before I started doing markets, like I hated going to the mall. I hated crowds. I would have never done this, standing in front of people and talking. But I think if you like what you're doing, and when you actually go out and do markets, it's not as like, obviously there's a million different ways to sell. There's the creepy way, there's the overbearing way. But if you're selling stuff that you like your own artwork or your own products, like a lot of times people, when you do markets, they're just really interested in what you're doing because that's not something they're doing in their life. So a lot of times for me, it's just like, I'm standing there, I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Just engaging with people, not just letting them walk by. A lot of people will just stand there and let those people walk by. But if you just simply say, hi, hello, how are you doing? They'll come over. They just need to hear your voice and come on in. And then you'll just get better and better at selling and upselling. Upselling is obviously a little different than selling. That's always a little harder because then you're kind of like, what if you got two and had a discount? But when you're selling products and it becomes your full living, you got to find ways to increase those average sales. When you first start out, I think a lot of times a lot of people don't want to start because I think everybody thinks you need to have this plan, you need to have a business plan, you need to have mentors, you need to write all these books. I didn't do any of that, right? It was probably early Instagram days when it actually worked, not like it is now. I just posted some enamel pens back when enamel pens were the big thing. They had that phase, and people started buying them online. And I was like, wow, if these people want them, what if I went and sold them in person? So I just started with one small thing, went to a market, had a couple other products, and started selling. I didn't have a plan, didn't have goals, I didn't have a business account. So there's many different ways to start. Don't overthink it. Obviously, and I might talk about this later, but obviously as you get further, you're gonna want to have your plan together. But when you start, don't let the back end of it slow you up. Just get out there. The most important thing is seeing if people want to buy your products. So there's many different ways, if that's what you need to do to start your business and that makes you feel comfortable, then go right ahead. But don't let that stop you. I know a lot of people, they let that stop them from getting out there and starting. Take risks. Now is the time. I'm 44. I have a wife and a kid now, so it would be way harder for me to start this right now. I do have friends out in the market who have kids and a family and everything, so you can do it. But if you're young and you're single and you're not tied down, now's the time. Take those risks. When you get older, you're not going to be sad that you took those risks. And even if it doesn't work out, you're going to be happy you tried. A lot of people never try, and then that's just something that kind of eats away on you. Like I said, as you get older, it only gets harder. You have a family, you have kids, you get more obligations. If you have a full-time job, it gets harder to take time off. Like I said, it's better to have tried and failed. I think, I spent about 20 years before I started actually working for myself full-time almost. And there was, I thought I failed a bunch before that. So definitely get out there and try. There's no reason not to. It doesn't work out for everyone, for sure. Like I said, I'm not special, but it doesn't work out for everybody. I want to make sure to say that, so that, because I know plenty of people that have tried. It definitely takes a special person to kind of do this whole thing. It's as the journey goes along, it definitely gets more complicated. So in the beginning, how do you choose products? That's probably the biggest thing, especially when I started. It's like, what are you into? I mean, that's really the best thing when you're starting out, is what are you into? What things are you into? What products do you enjoy? It's going to make it so much easier to sell if you guys are actually into the products. I couldn't imagine selling something I wasn't at least a little bit into. Start small. When you first start out, I've tried this a few different times. And the first time, I think I was like 25 with my buddy after college. And this was like maybe 2004, 5. I just got a credit card. It was like $4,000. We just maxed it out because we were like, we're going to make $4,000 worth of t-shirts and then we're just going to sell them. That's how it works in the world. Did not work that way. We didn't sell hardly any t-shirts. So start small. Do minimums. There's so many ways to make products now. You can heat press. You can do direct to garment printing. So just do small runs. Don't get 144. Don't get 288. Don't blow out your budget you don't have to do that. All you need to do is when you start is to figure out if it sells or not. So don't get crazy like I did. Then you kind of want to decide when you start making products, do you want to do high end or low end? There's two different games to play there. Neither one is wrong. It just depends what you're into. Some people take the high end route where it's like my product is a higher end product, and we live in a different atmosphere. And then there's people who take the lower end, cheaper route. Like I said, nothing wrong with that. You can do mass sales. That is a hard game to play when you're dealing with the cheapest of the cheap products because everybody is down there. And then usually when you're doing with lower end or cheaper products, you're having to compete against the larger companies that obviously have way more buying power than you. So I kind of went on the little bit higher end, like just even with stickers, like when I first started in 2016, 2017, I mean, people were selling those for like $1. Like that's what everybody was doing. And I started selling them for $5 or $6 right away. Obviously, your artwork, your product is unique to you, hopefully. With mine, it has my artwork on it, so people can't get my artwork anywhere else. So if I put my artwork on a product, I can kind of, I like to use nicer, higher end products as well. But people can't get that anywhere else, so I can kind of decide my price, and that helps. Like the low end, you can do it, but it's just a hard game to play. Customers will give you feedback. you can take that or not take that. I have heard just about everything now, outselling, outdoing booths. It is good though to get away from friends and family, because friends and family are going to support you. They like you. They're not trying to hurt your feelings. But when you get out into the real world and you're selling products, you're going to get your feelings hurt. They're going to tell you what they think. Customers will also give you feedback on just what type of products they want. If they understand what you're doing. I know a lot of times when I started, like, just the name is weird. ATOMICCHILD, so they would just act like, is this for kids, or like, so it kind of had to build up some name recognition for that. But do take customer feedback. If you go out and you do some markets and like you're just not selling or something, it just could just be what you're trying to do is on a wrong product, and then people will tell you like they want to see kids hats, or they want to see puzzles or stickers or pens or whatever you're into. So like I said, you can take it or leave it, but usually if you hear it enough, like if it's just a one-off thing, obviously, you don't have, like whatever. But like if you hear something 10, 15 times and you're trying to sell products, you probably want to take that in your brain and be like, okay, this is something I need to look into. Don't be afraid to try new things, new products. I've done a bunch of different products that I just didn't even think about because of customer feedback. You can be, if you're doing stuff like I am, where I have designs and I'm putting them on different products, you can use trendy products and still put your design on them, and that still feeds into your brand. And then you are on trend because it's a new thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing like the trendy graphic or whatever, the trendy thing, but you can still be a part of that and still build your brand by trying new things. So when you're starting your brand, there's basically two different ways when you're not creating something. When you are creating something, you can do a custom product or you can do blanks. So custom is made from a template. Have any of you guys ever made a custom product or done that yet? So basically, you get a template, no matter what it is, you build it all out, and then you send it to either someone here in the United States or someone overseas, depending on what your product is, and they'll make it to those specifications. Usually, I guess this would be on the benefits and downfalls, but usually that's higher. Blanks are pre-made products. That's what most people do when they start out. Once again, if you're selling your artwork, as long as you find a nice blank that you like, blanks are great. They're pre-made products. They're usually in stock. You can usually get them a little faster. Blank hats, blank t-shirts, those are all usually sitting somewhere here in a warehouse that you have access to, unless it was like the crazy times of the last 20 few years where, it took months, 6 months, a year to get products. It took me like 8 months to get hats one time. So that was different. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Hopefully that was a once in a lifetime thing for all of us. Let's hope for that. So the benefits versus downfalls of each. Custom, like I said, it's completely custom. You can do whatever you want. I think sometimes it can seem a little overwhelming to make a custom product, but it's nothing too crazy. Like, I just kind of find, as far as like hats, t-shirts, water bottle, like anything that you like, you can basically find that product and be like, hey, can we make this for me custom? And then you can do labeling. You can do branding, like on our hats, like we have custom labels that are inside. You can do everything. You can do custom tape, like whatever you want, any type of branding. Obviously the downfalls, like I was saying, of custom is usually custom stuff is made overseas. Sometimes it's hard to translate back and forth with just depending on which country you're dealing with. A lot of times that's kind of been worked out now. I know when I first started doing this 10 years ago, that was a little bit different, but pretty much everybody in those industries, at least the people are answering email, they speak English, so it's fine. But that can be the talking back and forth. You can lose stuff in translation. When you are making custom stuff, always get a sample made. Never just put your money in on a full run unless you've already got a sample. And things can change from batch to batch sometimes too. So if it's been a little while since you've got that product, you probably want to try and get another custom blank made or a custom one-off piece made sample. Usually sampling, it just depends what it is, but it's 150, 200 bucks, 250 bucks. It's way worth that money to get that piece, hold it in your hand, see all the different things that could possibly be wrong with it, or if it's okay, or just things you want to change, instead of spending thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on a product when it gets in there all that way. And then really, I mean, the only other couple downfalls with custom is, you have to order large quantities, Probably the minimum would be 144 pieces for a custom, but even at that, it's going to be super expensive. Usually, especially for hats. Usually for the price to make sense, you have to do like 576 or more. Obviously, you could, if you're just selling them yourself and not doing wholesale, you can kind of change your price around. And then obviously, with custom, it's getting shipped to you. It's not being made here. And that means it has to go to customs. Now, I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't run into this problem yet, but I've had some friends that have had their stuff stuck in customs, for months. And there's really nothing you can do about that. Once it goes into customs, it's out of your hands and it's pretty much this magic land that nobody knows how to access. So that's one downfall. Like I said, I haven't had that happen. And then of course, the other thing is the shipping cost. Usually you can just kind of roll that into the price of your product. Obviously, if you order a large amount, you can just usually it'll cost it just adds $1 or whatever to your product. There's kind of two ways to ship custom stuff overseas. It's going to be by ocean or by air. And then there's a couple different variations in those two. The ocean is going to take the longest. That usually takes a month or more. Usually 20 to 30 days it goes on an actual ship in those containers and gets shipped over. It can take longer. Like I said, during the height of COVID, stuff was taking 6 to 8 months, but right now it seems to be pretty much back on a month-ish, 20 to 30 days. So yeah, that's kind of, and then air, you can pay for different things for air, and obviously air gets kind of expensive, but once again, if you're ordering large volume, you can roll that into the cost of the product. But there's different variations in that. It's like overnight or 10 days or 18 days air, but it just, usually larger companies will do a ship, they're ordering like a year ahead or whatever, 2 years ahead, and they can just order thousands and thousands of units and just put it on the ship and let it get over. But air is a great way to go if you can afford it and it works in your price. So that's kind of the downfall of custom. So blanks that are pre-made, what are the benefits? Obviously the benefits are they're here, they're accessible, they're made. Usually blanks are made like hats is Richardson, t-shirts, and there's so many different companies that make blank t-shirts. You can just type in blank t-shirts in Google and you'll find a million of them. The best thing about it is they're here, they're sitting in warehouses. Currently there's not too big of a shortage of shirts. There was earlier last year, but I think that's all worked itself out. So blanks are here, they're ready to go. You can pretty much, you can get samples of those as well. Those are usually cheaper. They'll just charge you the cost of the product, which depending on what it is. But always still, even with a blank, unless you've held it in your hand, get a sample, make sure you like the quality, because seeing something online versus holding it in your hand are two completely different things. A picture can look awesome, and then when you hold the product in your hand, like, well, this isn't to my standards or my quality. The thing about blanks is you are at the mercy of those larger corporations. Obviously, they want to sell those blanks, that's all they do. But they have, they're supplying blanks to huge companies. So if you put in an order for your 50, 100, I'm not saying you won't get it, but if they get an order for 20,000, your order's going to wait. The only other really downfall of a blank is that it's accessible to everyone. So obviously there's so many different brands and people selling things that's like, I don't even know what you would make that people think, oh, these people use this same thing. I don't know if normal people pay attention to that, but that you have to think about that when you're using a blank, is that anybody else has access to that. So if you're trying to be exclusive, obviously a lot of people with t-shirts and hats, what they'll do is they'll have the tags ripped out and then they just print their tag in there. So then even though it's a blank, it's custom, the customer can't tell that it's a Gildan or a Next Level Apparel or whatever blank they're using, comfort colors. And then usually, since blanks are sitting in warehouses here, that means that depending on the type of decoration you want to do to your item, you also have to pay for the cost of the blank and the cost of decorating that item. So usually it's just going to be more expensive. So that's kind of the two different downfalls. So do you think we should wait till the end to do Q&A, or do you want to like do Q&A after each section? Up to you guys. Keep rolling.
Do you need to get through your stuff?
Huh?
Do you need to get through?
No, I just was like, if I get too far, you're gonna remember to ask questions about each thing.
I have a question.
Sure.
How do you pivot based on where your current inventory is on where your popular product is into a new type of product, either to complement that or just to push it to a new?
I don't know if I talk about inventory later, but inventory is hard. When you first start out, it's so hard to. That's been the biggest pain in my ass of this whole thing has been inventory. So the amount you order, the amount you sell, is it gonna go through? Are you gonna burn through all that? Are you gonna sell it? I mean, that is the never-ending problem of inventory. You just kind of have to order small, and then if you sell through that, you order the. I mean, sometimes I'll sell products and they'll sell out, and sometimes I have stuff sitting in the warehouse that's a year or two old, and then you just discount it and get rid of it. I don't know the magic answer to that. I think with your own brand, depending on what types of products you're using, you kind of get used to the pace of how things sell. But it also depends on, like, are you just selling it? Are you selling in markets? Do you have sales reps? Do you do wholesale? I mean, there's so many things, but I don't know the golden. I don't know the answer to that. So as far as like my hats, like I try to pick like a few different styles. So like I'm an outdoor brand. There's not a lot of like revolutionary products that are happening in that space. There's different levels, but pretty much everything in the outdoor space that's kind of like a basic need, like a water bottle, a hat, a backpack. There's a million different brands making every different type of those. So it's you can kind of make that stuff and it kind of sells forever. Like for hats, for me, like I do these corduroy hats. They're trendy, but I mean these have been trendy now for a few years. So it's just like a 6-panel trucker hat. Like that's just your standard hat. Like I've been selling those since I started. People have been selling those for probably 100 years at this point. So there's certain products. Obviously, depending on what you pick, that can change, but there's certain products that just kind of sell forever. That's just what you put on them. But I would just start small, see if those sell through, and then go from there. Does that answer your question? I wish there was a magic answer for that.
Well, I guess I was kind of looking for, like, so based on whatever your most popular product is now, do you then take that as inspiration to then push into another, like you said, water bottles, if that's selling really well, do you then think about, like, what's something else I can do that's not a water bottle, but might be able to target that same audience?
Yeah. Once again, I'm in the outdoor brand, so like I do custom Nalgene's. That's kind of, I mean, there's all kinds of different mugs and tumblers and people like making new things and stuff that gets popular, but like a Nalgene has been around forever now and everybody has at least one. So so let's just say drinkware is a category, right? I've tried mugs, I've tried tumblers, but it's the Nalgene water bottle that just consistently sells all the time. I order thousands of these things and they sell out. So it's just finding, like, for me, it's like, yeah, I want to try other products. So you're like, okay, drinkware is selling well, and I try these other things. Like we did mugs and they did really well, but they were a higher end mug. But then within the last 5 years, like not the last 5 years, but it seems like that. But since 2020, prices on everything went way up. Shipping costs went way up. And even though we're back to normal, none of those companies were like, oh, we can go back to 2019 prices. They were like, well, we're getting paid this much now. We're not cutting back. So those were just like, they bumped their price up $5. I was like, well, I can't sell those anymore. So at least wholesale. But yeah, I mean, you can try different things. at least for me in the outdoor band, like I know Nalgene's are kind of a staple, and if I do custom Nalgene's with my artwork on them, they just kind of so. But yeah, I mean it does make me think like what other products can I do in that line? Yeah.
I also am sort of an outdoor focused brand, and my question is like, okay, you could have just sold like a 2-inch patch instead of hat, and then people could put that on a backpack or a hat or a shirt or whatever. So where does your decision come from in terms of like, do I stick to stickers, patches, pins that people can put where they want it versus I'm going all in on hats as this design? Is it because like you wanted to control like that material and that color of the final execution of how it all goes together? Or is it like a profit motivated thing, or where does that decision come from?
So I'd sell them all. So
Yeah,
you can buy the patches by themselves. You can buy them on the hat. I guess I just like as far as like for me like picking what goes on what different products. We obviously have like a few of like I don't know if a better word iconic couple designs that everybody kind of or at least a lot of people know, like this peace sign and my Yeti design. So like stuff like that, that's a big seller. Like I know that I can put it on the whole run of products and it'll just sell because it's a design that people are just drawn to. So with those, you can just look at your numbers and be like, okay, this does really well on this, and this. What if I tried on this? What if I tried on this? So that's kind of what I do with like our best selling is like how many different things can I put that on? Because then if people love that design on that, usually they're gonna buy a couple of those other items. But like I said, I just try them on all those products. So like this design is a pin, a patch, a hat, a sticker, a magnet, a blanket, a woven blanket, a puzzle, you know, like you just kind of go through it all. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
I'm just curious about like, because for me, I worry about, because I draw national parks, so I have a lot of different designs.
Mhm.
So I worry about the scale of that across so many different products, like that's a lot of SKUs. And so I guess like, how do you approach how slowly you scale across all these products and like all these designs as well? Because obviously that just exponentially grows.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of different factors in that. Obviously, it's money. It's what's selling. I mean, when you're scaling, you kind of have to like get out of the creative side of your mind and start thinking about the business side. So it's just like, how much money do you have to spend? Do you have a line of credit where you can, you can go deep and buy a ton of product? Do you sell that much product? Like national parks, we're in 6 or something right now, and obviously we've been building for years, but they place an order, so it's like you get a PO and you fill the PO, so that helps me expand. Basically how I started was I like did pins, patches, all the different products that we have, stickers, blankets, all that stuff, and then you show the client like, here's all the products that we can make. We can do custom designs for you on these products. And then just see if that's stuff they want to order that's custom to them. Do they want to do custom designs? Like usually I don't do custom artwork or name drops for anybody because in the outdoor space, it's just rife with like, you can see this design in every park everywhere with the same stupid name, whatever. It's a great business. They do billions of dollars. I just wanted to differentiate myself from the name drop. So I don't do name drops. I'll do custom artwork. So like a client, like the national parks, will do custom artwork and then they say what they want to order. But it's really up, it's up to you. Like, are you selling right now already? So you know what's selling, so you know what products are good. So those are the products I would go deeper on if you were with a client. Be like, I know these products sell, these products will sell with your designs. And then just look at the numbers. That's everything. So, yeah, it gets less, it's not, there's not like all these passionate choices when it comes to scaling, because you just have to be like, do I actually have money to do this? How much can I afford? But sometimes you got to take out loans or get a line of credit because you know that this customer just put in a $50,000 order or $20,000 order, and you're gonna get that. But that PO is like 3 months away, so you have to get the money. So you can get the money, it's coming, but can you float that money for that long? You have to figure out if you can do that or not.
A follow-up for that. In that client conversation, does the client sometimes express their desire to see a design on a particular product, and then you respond to that request?
So that can get really, if it's a large client like a national park, sure. You can kind of entertain them with that. A lot of just mock it up, obviously. Just doing mocks and showing them what's possible. I mean, you have to decide, like, do I want to offer them 4 products, 5 products, 20 products? Like, that's just something you have to make that decision, like the pain level you want to deal with, the finances that you have. Like, you can just focus on one thing. You can just do one product and just do that. There's plenty of brands that focus on 1 or 2 products, and then they just scale with that. It makes it a lot easier than having 500, 1,000 SKUs like we have. You know, it gets crazy. But yeah, it's all just, you know, larger clients can say that. You don't necessarily have to make a product just because they want to. It has to make sense. It has to make financial sense. You don't want it to bankrupt you in the process. So it's up to you. I mean, you can tell them no. Not everybody likes to hear that. A lot of smaller clients, especially in the outdoor world, like just different souvenir shops, like they all want their name on everything, and they have all these ideas of what they want. I mean, I would have thousands of products if I just go by all their suggestions. So you just kind of have to moderate yourself. Like, what's your pain point? What do you want to make? What do you want to offer? You know, if you're focused on what you offer, it does make life more simple. Like, we have 100-page line sheet or something ridiculous like this now. So you can make your life as simple or as complicated as you like. It's really up to you. Yeah.
This is probably more specific to like online shops, but do you have any thoughts on doing pre-orders versus having inventory ahead of selling?
Yeah, I can talk about a couple different things. So those are both good options. I think print on demand is good for. So there's 2 different ways to tackle that. Like, you can do. Well, you ask your question again.
Oh yeah, I was asking if you had thoughts on doing pre-orders versus having inventory before you start selling.
So pre-orders can be tricky, and I talk about this a little later with social media, but it's like, if you don't have an audience, and nobody kind of knows who you are, and you just put up a pre-order, nothing could happen. I think pre-orders are really good if you've built an audience, a following of people that are interested in what you do. Then you can do pre-orders, test it out. I mean, when you're small and you have a following and you know people will purchase, do pre-orders. I mean, it pays for your stuff. Yeah, instead of having stock on hand. I started that way just because I wanted to have the products in my hand. I always liked products. I just started small, had small levels of inventory. Like I said before, just keep it small. Don't go crazy. But it can go either way. If you're trying to sell in person, like at markets, then you obviously have to have stock. But when you're starting out, I would just keep as low a stock as possible and just see if it sells. And then as it sells, ramp up your stock. But pre-orders can be great. There's obviously a lot of companies that do that, but you really have to work on your social media and building a following, and otherwise you're going to do that and then get 0 pre-orders, and then you just feel bad about yourself. You're like, nobody likes this. Another good, kind of option is print on demand. There's a ton of print on demand sites that are available, so you don't have to carry any inventory. Obviously, your percentages are different. The money you make is different, but your risk is absolutely 0, So any of these sites, Redbubble, Society6, Threadless, Imprint is, they do mostly prints, like, art prints. But there's a ton of these sites. I think Zazzle was one. I mean, there's a million of these direct to garment, or they print on like Redbubble. You can, in Society6, I believe they probably have like 800 different products you can put your artwork on. These are all great sites. The quality of print on demand is way better than it's ever been. It's definitely not the exact same as screen printing as far as t-shirts, but it's if you want to start a business and not have to have risk, then you can start your own site. Like I think most of those you can kind of make it face like it's your site. It's not a Redbubble site or Society6 site if you pay a little extra. But usually those sites are free to set up your brand. because they take, they obviously take a larger percentage of the profit because they're making it, they're shipping it out. Like I said here, none of these print money, it's the same thing. We can all, in this class here in the next 5 minutes, set up a store on all those, and unless we have a following, we're not gonna sell anything. I mean, I've had all these for years. I've never really pushed them, and they do okay, but like, it's, unless that's your main thing and you're pushing it, it's not one of those things where you make a store, put it on that site, and then you just get sales. Like, it just doesn't happen. But yeah, none of those print money unless you're pushing them out there. That goes with anything. It's this day and age is so easy to do all that, where I think everybody thinks that you're just gonna put it online and then it's instantly gonna happen. Because it seems like that does happen for some people. I don't know who those people are, not me. Anytime I've built anything or done anything, it's been the long path. So I'm kind of in the mode now, just I know that whenever I try something, it's gonna take some time. Any questions on print on demand or kind of those type of sites? Yeah,
I have a comment.
sure.
Because my business is run like through print on demand. If you have your own domain, Printful is a really good one to use. We have a lot of stuff where you can customize your, not packaging, but things that come with the product so that it doesn't look like it's just coming from a third party.
Yeah, so there's,
Domain, it's,
I talk about this a little later, but there's a, if you do Shopify, and I'll talk about this a little later, but here's a million different apps that they have that you connect to a store, and these all will, they'll ship your stuff for you. It looks like a regular, it'll look just like my website here, but you don't actually ship any of it. And so yeah, this is, I'll talk about this later, but yeah, Printful's great for that. And then they all give you different options, like you're saying. Some will allow you to do custom packaging and all that stuff. I mean, when you're starting out, I think that's a really smart thing to do, just monetarily, not taking a big risk. I did it a few times where I just got credit cards, maxed them out, printed a bunch of stuff, and didn't really work out. But I also wasn't really following a passion. I was just trying to make stuff because I liked making stuff. I hadn't really settled in on the thing that I enjoyed to make. And I was also just selling online. I was like, I'll just make it and post it on there, and nothing happened, so. All right, so this is kind of what we're talking about. Where to sell, where should we sell? Obviously, we can start online. That's obviously, this day and age, there's, you don't have to sell online. There's plenty of people I know doing in-person markets that are selling, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, doing markets. You don't know who they are. I don't know who they are until you go to those markets and meet them. I met a ton of people going out and doing in-person markets, but online, for me, the two best places, if you're just starting out, Squarespace. It's cheap. It'll work great for a beginner's website. It lacks a lot of things you need to scale and grow. So if you can afford it and it makes sense, just start your shop on Shopify. Because if you start on Squarespace, you're eventually going to switch over to Shopify. Because Squarespace is cool, but it just doesn't have, as you scale, the things that you need. So those are the two places. Shopify has different levels, and then, like I was just showing you there, like that was just one. Like search for apps of print on demand, and you can see there's 172 apps just for that one option. What's that, like 8 pages? So you can see that like everybody is building apps for Shopify. So no matter what you're searching for to add on to your site, it's there, super powerful. Like on my website for like checking out, there's like things that'll say, we suggest you buy this with this, or if you buy these 2 things, you get a discount. Like those are all apps that you add on to Shopify. So yeah, just if you can afford it, just start on Shopify. Squarespace is fine. Shopify is great, especially if you're planning on doing any selling in the real world, because they have really good point of sale systems, which is a device that you carry around. Basically, the ones we use look just like phones, but they're POS systems. You can scan all the products. if you, with Squarespace, I think when I was doing Squarespace, I had to use Square readers, which are fine too. Everything's great now because you can just basically tap on most people, so it really brings down the time to sell. Shopify is nice just because you can keep track of your inventory. You can use that reader, you can set up different locations. And as you get bigger, like you need to collect tax and you need to pay all your taxes. It sucks, but you gotta do it. And Shopify has a million different apps to help you do that. For me, so I started online when I was younger, and that was kind of one of the things where I started making products, I put them online, and I thought people would buy them. And then when I sold a few, that was nice, but it wasn't like anything to change my life. And I started thinking like, maybe nobody likes my work. And then like we all just seek validation from each other. And we're all in this tiny little world where we're like this much and the rest of the world is out here. So then we're like seeking validation from other creatives and designers. And then when you don't get that, you're like, oh, it must be terrible. I'm suck. Nobody likes my work. No big name designer cares about me or knows who I am. So you can really like start to get into that mindset when you're online and like not getting any validation from outside of this little guy here that rules our lives. So that's when you want to start doing in-person markets. If you want to sell products, I suggest going and doing in-person markets. That's what changed my life. That's what changed my whole mind about how things work, how people like my work. Before I started doing in-person markets, like I said, I thought nobody liked my work. Even though I was getting freelance work, I just wasn't getting any validation from designers, and I thought that was the whole world, and I just, So I went and started doing the first market I ever did. I set up a booth. I had like a 6-foot table. I hand wrote out my sign. Highly suggest you don't do that. And I had I think I had stickers. I had like 5 stickers, a hat. I think I had some prints and maybe some pins and keychains. It was pretty minimal. But in those today's, I did like between $800 and $1,200 of sales, which I was working a full-time job. And I don't know I think I was making that a week. But that was more, that was more than I made in a week at my job. So that kind of like really changed my whole frame of mind, because I went out in the real world. These people didn't know who I was. There was no preconceived notion in their mind. It was just like, I like that product, or do I dislike that product? And I sold those. I sold the regular people, and I was just like, my mind changed, because I was no longer okay. Like, as much as we want to please everybody here and like we want everybody to like us, like we can only buy so much of each other's products. The majority of people who buy my work, they think it's cool that I own the business or whatever, but they don't care about anything design. Like they either just like it or they don't like it. So that really changed my mind, because I was like, oh, people actually do like my work. So I started doing in-person markets. There's a million different type of markets. I don't like. Do you guys live in big cities, small cities, all of the above? Yeah.
Very small.
If you live close to a big city, there's going to be all kinds of different markets. We're lucky in Colorado. I don't know why, but on the Front Range where I live, between like Denver and Fort Collins, and even in the mountains, there's just 5, 10, 15 markets happening every weekend all the time. So it's literally just, we're setting up markets this year. I have a person that I hired that's helping me do that this year. And like, we're setting up 3 or 4 markets every weekend, just nailing them out. But there's all different kinds. So there's your standard farmers markets. And they're still called farmers markets, but they're not really farmers markets. I think that might be the wrong way to use it, but I'm gonna say anyways. I've done maybe 2 or 3 that were actually farmers markets, where people were selling fruit or vegetables. So a farmer's market is basically transitioned into a place where local people come out and sell their wares, whether it be food, or anything, just all different types of stuff. Music festivals, we've done a couple of those. I think the biggest thing about music festivals is placement. Because you can get stuck by the stage and your life is going to be miserable trying to sell. I don't know if you've ever done that, but when you're by the stage, it is so loud and you have to like yell to like hear anybody, and that's not a good way to try to sell to people. Like literally they put their mouth up here and then I have to like yell in their ear, like it's terrible. So for a music festival, make sure if you do make sure you get a layout of the map and be as far away from that stage as possible. And you also have to look at like flows of traffic and everything. Like we did one where like they had the festival, like the stage was over here, and then like all the market was over here. So like people had to leave. A lot of times you have to do markets a few times to kind of get the layout and see where the traffic is, because sometimes it can be a great festival and like you do it and it sucks because you're just in a spot where the traffic doesn't flow. So you kind of do that. We do really well in Colorado. 1 million beer festivals all the time. I think they call it the Napa Valley of beer. I mean, every weekend in the mountains, there's 1 million beer festivals, wine festivals. And let me tell you, anytime there's alcohol and selling, there's usually a pretty good mixture. Now, it can get to a point where you kind of get towards the end where it becomes real annoying because people are drunk, and then that's a whole different situation. But for the most part, beer festivals are really good. And then on and on and on. There's art festivals. I mean, I'll show you a couple places that maybe people have heard of or not. But really, if you just Google farmers markets or whatever in your local town, you should be able to start finding them. A couple of ones that do nationwide stuff. This was the place, it's called Jackalope Art Fair. This was the first one I ever did back when I first started, and they do like California, Colorado, and somewhere else. And then the other one a lot of people have heard is Renegade. They do a ton of different events everywhere. So these are two, Renegade's obviously the big one. They do, I've done that one in, or I guess I've never done that one, but I've been to it in California. I know I did it in, I've done so many I can't remember. I did that in Denver. But this is a really good one. Basically, how any markets work and like finding out about them is networking in person. Like the first market I did, people were like, you just hear them talking like, did you do this? Did you hear this? And like, you'll just hear all these different types of markets they're having. Like even, so my office is in Fort Collins, but I live in a small town outside of Fort Collins. And it's like, I don't know how many people live there. It's small. It's like probably a couple thousand. Even they do a farmer's market like every other Saturday. So most towns do some sort of meeting there. And then they also do like, what's it, like some sort of festival they do every year where like the whole town gets together. So like there's chances there, even in small little tiny towns. You just have to Google and go to those events. Like even like I think the one I went to was it's like called Beans and something. It's like Beans and Cattle or something. It's a small town. It's a small farming town. And so like I went there and like there's people selling stuff and there's booths. So like, oh, obviously this is a place where people sell. And then the next thing, kind of after in-person markets, is wholesale. Wholesale is kind of a double-edged sword. Wholesale can be great. Wholesale can be really hard. Obviously, there's all different types of wholesale. You know, you have your chains, you have your resorts, you have your local stores. When I started out basically doing in-person markets is when I first got into my first local stores. A lot of people who own smaller local stores, it's getting harder and harder to do that obviously these days as rent prices go up. But those were the first people that saw me there and they were like, do you want to be in our store? And I was like, yeah, so awesome. So that's kind of a good place to kind of meet local stores. Resorts, a lot of the stuff that I've got in there has all been through sales reps. Chain stores, that one was actually just at a market, like I said before about REI. So there's kind of, what's the next slide? There's kind of, obviously, there's a benefit to wholesale just because it's a double-edged sword. So the benefit is obviously if you get into a chain store, your reach. Like we're in REI and every one of their stores. So like people were right there by the register because we sell stickers in REI. So like everybody, usually if I say that and they go in REI are like, I've seen you there, they can recognize it. But you know, there are downsides to wholesale. You have to follow a bunch of different rules. You can get chargebacks. Wholesale can just disappear. 2020, we had all of our POs from all of our different stores for the year, all stacked up, ready to go, all gone. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of business just gone. There's no contracts with wholesale. There's no handshakes. It's just they either send you orders, they don't. That's how it goes. So that's the, while when it's going good, it's good. I know some people that, you know, they were in Target and then Target was just like, hey, we don't want this order, you know? So then you're in a store like that's crazy because they have 1,800 stores. So if you're getting into wholesale, you just kind of have to realize that there can be risks. It can end at any time. I think the biggest thing for me was as soon as we got into REI and like that was like, when I first got into it, that was our biggest client. That was our main chunk of business. So like I took the risk, but as we grew, I was like, I have to make the other part of our business bigger than what REI is, because REI can just go away. So if you do take on wholesale, you just want to make sure that you're bringing in other sources of income. You never just want to rely on one source of income. So we have online sales. We have direct to customer sales, which is going to markets. We have wholesale. What else do we do in online, if I did say that? So we try to have as many options as possible, so that if one slows down, usually how it goes is a couple of them are steady, a couple will slow down, but you always have money coming in. Questions on this part of it?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
So for the in-person markets, when you're first starting off, like maybe like next week I'm gonna try this.
Nice.
What is your like point of sale system? Do you just use just regular PayPal and stuff, or would you recommend getting like a Square reader or something to make the credit card purchasing process quicker?
So most people pay with cards these days. I mean, Square is going to be the easiest thing to start out with. Shopify is great. It has its own system that costs more. It's actually called Square.com is its own thing. Just go there, get the little card reader, it connects to your phone, and that's how you do that. Or just take cash, which is a little harder these days, but people do still pay in cash. And this kind of harkens back to what I was saying before. Like when you start out, like eventually you want to get all your ducks in a row, but when you start out, you'll figure it out. Just take payments, just get it going, see if it works, and then you kind of figure it out from there. But yeah, Square.com is where to start with that.
Okay. Yeah, I asked because I had a friend that would tell me like they would skip booths if they didn't take credit card, like literally put the products back.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, basically in 2017 or 2016, I took cash, but now we basically don't take cash. It's just, nobody hardly has it, and it's just a pain in the ass to like have your employees keep cash, and then you have to send them out with extra cash so they can make change. And there's really no reason. Almost everybody has a card, and if they don't, then you can just live with the one person who gets mad at you because you don't take cash. And they're like, "What's this country coming to?" And you have to listen to all that. You're gonna hear all kinds of people are gonna tell you their opinion because like they're buying from you, so like you have to be their audience. I've heard it all.
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing was like this lady came up to me and was like, "Who even buys this stuff?" And I'm just like, cool. But yeah, so Square, that's the best place to start. Obviously, like one of the good things about Square is not Squarespace, Square, separate thing. Square is that it allows you to take offline sales, which is good and bad. It's a risk unless you're selling maybe $100, $200, $300 items. If you're doing stuff like for me, most of our items are under $100. It's most people that are buying at a market hopefully have that in their account. When you do offline sales, they're not registering to the bank exactly. It's just taking it as a sale, and then as soon as you get back on the connection, it reconciles it all. And I haven't had anything like that because, like I said, most of mine is just smaller amounts. But if the good thing about it and bad thing about Square is that you can do offline sales. So if you're somewhere where service sucks, which happens to me just depending on where I go in the city, like all of a sudden AT&T is like, we don't provide service in this little block right here for whatever reason. Or you're just inside a warehouse where they don't let you on Wi-Fi. A lot of places nowadays will let you access Wi-Fi, but it's still a problem if there's hundreds of vendors. You can just get kicked off. It doesn't happen too much, but that's the benefit of doing Square is you can do offline sales if you use that. And it's just great. It's easy thing to start out with. I use that forever.
Okay, thank you. My second question is a bit more towards the chain store. Like I was just introduced to that idea of like the 30, 60, 90
terms. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you describe that a little bit more because I'm just confused about it.
Yeah, so that's a whole other game. Usually when you get into like local stores, unless they're a location that maybe has 6, 5, 7 locations, or they do large orders, So what we try to do with smaller local stores is the first couple orders, they have to pay with credit card. We have to know that they're a reliable source of income. If they can't pay your first order, you definitely don't want to send them a second order. But yes, so after that, we'll offer terms. Large stores, so basically with REI, I think with REI, maybe it was Target, but they offer, basically it's like you can get paid at 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days, and then they offer you different amounts of it. Like if you want to get it paid in 30 days, we take X amount of percentage. If you want it 90 days, you get your full percentage. Like some of them do that. I think REI is just 30 days. But yeah, I mean, that's a game you have to play. You don't have to play that, but when you get into large chain stores, they all have terms. I have never, any large store has never paid me right away. Everything is on terms. And then that's just another thing. You just have to know if you can do that or not. If you're getting into a large chain store like REI, like I just said yes. I had savings, and luckily my savings covered the first order. And then you just hope to God it can work its way out. But if you're getting regular orders from that, once you get kind of past the first few times, like then it's covering itself and they're paying. But when you first start out, like you just have to carry it. I would avoid terms if you can. But some people only allow you to do terms, and that's just a personal choice with you if you want to carry that money or you can't afford to carry that money. Yeah, it's a personal choice. Sometimes it's just like if somebody does if they're small, like a lot of small stores will be like, we require 30 days. We'll be like, no, like just say no. Like it's not, unless they have, like if people pay me for a year solid and they want terms, I'll usually do 30 days. Small stores, I usually never do longer than 30 days. That's just ridiculous. And then larger chain stores between 30 and 60. But yeah, it's just up to you. What can your finances handle? There's, I can't remember what the technical term is, but there's companies that if you give them a PO, and it's a large PO, I think maybe it's called factoring, they will give you money to do that order based off that PO. So there's ways to get money when you have a large PO if you need it. But if at all possible, I would avoid terms if possible. Like I said, with larger clients, it's pretty much impossible. Any questions on that one? Yeah.
Small logistical question. On wholesale, do you have UPCs on all of your products?
So anything that is in a large retail store, yes. And there's a million different ways to do UPCs. Currently, I go through the government. It's called GS1. That's the United States government. It's more expensive to buy UPC codes that way, but you actually own them and you know where they are. Whereas there's tons of companies that will sell you UPC codes in bulk, and technically they're a reputable company, and those UPC codes will just be for you. But if that company goes out of business or anything, like maybe those UPC codes aren't yours. So there's definitely in Shopify, there's a bunch of different apps for UPC codes as well. But unless, at least as far as I've known, like right now, unless you're like purchasing from the GS1 government site of the United States, then that UPC code can technically go wherever. So I buy them direct there. It's more expensive, but then it's registered. It goes on the government registry. It's live, ready to go. But there's a million ways to do UPC codes these days. Yeah.
So I have like 99 questions. So are you available to like talk about this more later?
Sure.
In the sense of just taking in, but on the wholesale side of it, like when you're doing those sales to the larger stores and they're making an order, is it correct in understanding that they make the order for this amount at this reduced rate, and then how that sells is irrelevant to that sale other than how many more orders they place, right? Like in the sense of what you're getting paid for that order.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you will decide pricing, your wholesale pricing to them. They'll place that original PO, and then you'll get paid for it if it sells or not. But obviously, if it doesn't sell, you're not going to get another one.
Sure.
So but there's no, at least as far as my experience, there's no contracts. There's nothing. Like with REI, we do a lot of business with them. There's no contracts. There's nothing. It's just. It's either it sells or it doesn't sell, or they send you POs or you don't get POs. And they can change that up. Like this year, like in the last year or two, like they've changed up how they do it. We used to get them every other week, and now they just send them like every other month. So it's just like, it can just change. You're kind of that's the thing about it. Like it's awesome because you get those really big orders, but it is, it's can definitely be stressful.
I was gonna say, and how much lead time do they typically need from your experience? Because I know that's one of the things that's the big.
Yeah, so with big companies, like, you kind of, when you're starting out and you're small like we were, you kind of just have to like be like lie and say like you can, and then you figure it out, because usually like you can determine terms, but they basically, I talked to REI when I first did it, like before I had any idea what it was. I was like, they were like, you could do it in 3 days or 5 days or 7 days, and I was like, 3, no problem. And then like we started doing it, I was like, we need a week. But they were like, well, if you ask for anything over 7 days, you're kind of like, you go down on the tier of their vendors, because then it's like, you obviously can't handle this. So usually you have a week, and that's it. You're just gonna get it, have it pre-packed, or you just have a team that can pack it right away. But yeah, those places, they want it quick, because they have to, like REI, they have to send it to a warehouse. So you get it, goes to a warehouse, and then sits in a warehouse, and then they distribute it out to all their locations. So it probably takes another week or so to get out to all the different places.
Do you have any control over the actual price that they set in store?
Yes, in store, no. Basically what they do is, it's just how much of a profit they want to make on it. So you negotiate your wholesale price, and then usually they'll double, triple, 5 times. I mean, it just kind of depends how much money they want to make. But no, they I mean, you can, like, they ask to suggest a retail price, but it's up to them.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other questions on that stuff? And then we're making a video, and we'll post the full thing too, so like you can watch it back. So basically, let's talk about building a booth. Does this go to 230, or what's this go to? 230? I don't remember.
I think so.
So how to build a booth. When I started out, I had a 2001 4-door Chevy Cavalier. That was my truck. I hauled a 10x10 tent, a folding table, displays, everything you can think of, water, battery packs, chairs, all fit in that car because the back seat folded down. So if you're doing outdoor events, you're gonna wanna get a 10x10 tent. When you first start out, you can just get the plain old generic 10x10 from Walmart. That's what I did. It's like I had a blue tent. I think I still have that sitting in the warehouse. When you first start out, obviously if you can have custom signage and like custom tents and all, that's great. But when you first start out, you just wanna see if it works. So get you a 10x10 tent at Walmart. While you're there, they have plastic folding tables. You're gonna wanna get that. You don't wanna get the wooden tables. They were heavy and it's hard to fit them into your car. So get a 6-foot folding table or an 8-foot folding table. I would suggest a 6, it's easy to carry around. Displays, there's Azar displays. They have a ton of different displays that you can buy. They sell retail displays, but they'll work. You can set them on your table. Like we were talking before, POS system, you're gonna want that. You don't have to have that if you're just taking cash, but that's pretty hard to do these days. Definitely want to have a backup battery. Some places you have to pay extra for electricity. Sometimes you just have access to electricity. Most time you do not. So you want to have a backup battery, and then you want to have a chair. Make sure to have enough water and good shoes. Probably don't think about that, but your feet are going to be killing you. So yeah, I mean, a simple booth is just that. You can dress it up or dress it down as much as you like. It's good to have your pricing out. There's kind of 2 different theories on having a price list. Some people are like, you have to have everything priced because people can just kind of look and know. I kind of go both ways. Like, I like not having prices because then that also encourages talking to them, other than like having to reach out, because then they literally have to go, what's the price? And then that gives you your chance to like talk to them and ask them how their day is and like talk to them about different pricing and everything. So it kind of goes different ways. You kind of have to see what works the best for you. But yeah, any questions on like building kind of a regular in our outdoor booth? Sometimes you can go places where they'll do 10x10 tents, and tents inside, it just gets really weird. Like I've done the Colorado Convention Center. I've done that like 20 different times and all these different events, and they all have different rules. Like we did one earlier this year where they I put up my tent like I usually do inside, and like they came over and like, the fire marshal said you can have tents in here, and I was just like, I just did this like 2 weeks ago in here. They're like, it's the rule. So like that inside tents, most of the time, but sometimes you just have to know that they can come and make you take that down because of some sort of rule that they have. But for the most the good thing about a 10 by 10 tent, even if you don't, you can't use the canopy inside, is that you can take the top off usually, and then you can use that frame to like hang like wire racks off them and stuff. So it's kind of good just for that as well. Like I said, my first one was, the first one indoors was just, I believe I had 2 wooden tables that I got from my wife's parents' house. They were heavy. Black sheets from Walmart, and I think maybe like it was Hobby Lobby or Michael's or something. I got like this little turnstile thing to put all my pins in. I mean, it was really basic. You're really just trying to figure out, you don't want to invest a ton because it's like, is this going to work or not? And then like as you go, you can like build up to booth to have custom signage, custom tent, all that stuff. Any questions on that? Awesome. Stock versus no stock. We did talk about this a little bit, but obviously carrying stock can be good. For me, I like to have stock just because we ship it. We can put all the freebies in there, giveaways. We can make sure that it goes out in the next couple days. When you're relying on other people to ship it, you know, obviously it's a business model, so they are trying to get it out as soon as possible, but they also have 50 other brands or whatever that they care about too. So that's kind of the pro and con of that. Obviously carrying stock costs more. You have to invest more money. But for me, I just like personally having it in the warehouse so that we can, like if I have an event tomorrow, I know that I can just go to the warehouse and grab the stuff. It's not sitting at some state away. Print on demand is nice. People that ship it out for you, you know, no stock. Like I said, when you're starting out, that's a great way to go. There's very little risk. Obviously up above, lots of risk there when you start out. But that's kind of the pros and cons of carrying a lot of stock. I mean, the more stock you get, there's a lot more, it gets a lot more difficult because like you get taxed on what's sitting in your warehouse and just how much you burn through and all that. But when you're starting out, obviously having no stock is good, but then that keeps you from doing like local markets. Usually no stock is having an online site like we were talking about before where it's printed and shipped. Having stock allows you to do those local markets, meet people in person, make networking, connecting with all those local people. Like I said before, that's how I met people that were doing hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars of sales at these markets, families who started their own business, single moms, dads, like everybody, they all started their own businesses doing that. So having stock allows you to do that. Any questions on stock versus no stock? I know we kind of talked about that. Cool. And then, when do you build this fine business that you're trying to start? For me, mine was after work. Like I said, I worked in the construction industry for a long time. So, you know, I think I worked 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or 7 to 5, whatever. And I would just come home and design, because before I had selling products, I was doing, freelance work. So I would just come home and do that. I was young in my 20s and I could sleep 4 hours a day and it was great. I would just burn my time. Weekends obviously are a great time if you have a full-time job. You have, maybe if you have kids, I know a lot when they get older they start doing stuff on the weekends, but weekends are a great time to build if you have a full-time job. Obviously all this is way easier when you don't have kids, but you can still do it when you have a family. Now, like, do you want it to be a part-time or do you want it to be full-time? You got to think about that when you build it. So all those things go into it, but it just kind of, you can work it into your life. It doesn't have to take over. You kind of just decide like what type of business you want it to be. You guys have any questions that kind of like when to build? Any questions on that or any tips or anything you guys want? I think for me, just after work was the easiest. And obviously I did it on the weekends as well. And then when I got to part-time, I was able to do part-time, then I could shift it to do more. Obviously, the more time you're able to give the thing, the more it can grow if you're putting into it. And then if you're not saying that, if you just do it after work, it's only going to grow to a certain amount. But obviously, the more time you can get to it, the further the thing can grow. I know when I started doing freelance work, like people would straight up ask, like, is this your full-time job? And I'd just be like, yeah, even though it wasn't, I was at work. But then they would give you more work because they think that's your thing, so. This can be a slow process. I know, likely I've said this before, a lot of people these days, just because of how social media works, think it's gonna happen right away. For me, I'm 44 now. I was 36 or 37 when I quote unquote got any kind of success. I had been doing freelance before that and getting a lot of work that way, but that was just extra money. It didn't change my life. I didn't really get any recognition or anything. So sometimes you have to, this is hard to do, you have to think in years or decades. Not fun. But that's usually at least years. You know, for me, it took decades of trying and failing and feeling a loser sometimes. So, you know, it's a hard thing to think in your head, but if you're going to start a business and it doesn't blow up in the next couple years, that's pretty normal. It's very rare to blow up. If any of your last name was Kardashian, you can probably start $1 billion business, but most likely you're not. So it's very rare to blow up. It's a slow process. You build, you get better, you learn more things, and you slowly grow. It's gonna be hard, whether it's socially, I mean, there was plenty of time where I pretty much just stopped talking about doing art because of people, like, I had an art degree and I was working in construction and people would be like, what do you do with your art degree? Or I just stopped talking about it because I didn't want to hear it. You know, you have to be like, I'm delivering construction equipment, that's what I'm doing. But I was still doing artwork and everything after. I just got tired of talking about it. You know, like I said, you're gonna feel pressure at a certain point in my 30s, you know, my early 30s, like my parents had always been super supportive, and most people had, but then, you know, you're 30 now, you're not in your 20s, and people are like, what are you doing with your life? And, you know, that gets pretty hard when it starts coming from your family. But if you know it's what you want to do, and you're actually trying to do it, and you're making gains, then you just got to put your head down and keep going for it. Obviously, there's a point where if you're doing it and it's not growing and it's not getting you to where you want to, then, you know, you have to decide if you want to let go or keep pushing. Obviously, there was a point where I was broke, 32, living at my parents' house, and I was washing dishes to make money. At that point, I probably should have been like, maybe this isn't my life. But I don't know why, but in my head, I was like, I still want to do this, and I'm gonna get myself out of it, and I did. So it's definitely, you know, it's kind of like how much pain can you tolerate, and you're probably gonna have to tolerate that pain. Any questions on any of that? Put yourself. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, what do you feel excited for next? Like new product or?
For me now, like as we scale, it's so many things. It's just like, you know, scaling, getting people to do like, we hired a guy who does like, he sets up all of our markets and everything. So like, it's nice to not have to deal with that. It was great to not have to find somebody to handle all the admin and orders. Somebody packs all the orders, somebody ships them, like different people. So like, as you grow, just getting less and less of that day-to-day stuff off of my shoulders. Cause like this business is built around me drawing stuff. And I don't do that a lot right now just because I'm running the business as well. So for me, I'm just excited about getting more things off my plate and getting back to being more creative. Just seeing how it grows. I mean, when I started, like I had an idea in my head of what like success was, and we've far surpassed that. So it's just like, you never know where it's gonna go. I'm just super excited about how we grow, which direction, all that. I mean, there's just so much right now, because I don't know, I didn't think about it getting to this point. So it's like, well, I have ideas, I just don't know where it's going. So just making the right moves, being able to get back to design more, that's kind of what I'm excited about right now.
You touched on it a little bit, but can you speak a little bit more specifically about like your process of how much you're spending designing or when you're spending designing versus running the business? Like, Are you having to like block out a certain amount of time a week that I'm gonna do this? Or is it like, in the spring, I'm gonna design all this stuff and then we're gonna do business all year? Like, what does that actually look like for you as you've grown versus, you know, when you
Yeah,
first started out?
so when I first started, I was just doing it on the weekends and stuff and drawing and creating. And that's where a lot of this came from, was like in 2016 or 17, this was pretty popular. I was like, I'm gonna do a design every day on Instagram, and I did. And that's where a lot of these designs came from. So I did that for solidly for a year, and then I kept it up for a couple of years doing it every other day or whatever. So I had a ton of designs. Now, I guess previously in life, like I had to design on my off time. Now I can kind of pick, I can design at work every day if I want to. The biggest thing about designing at work now is there's always interruptions, whether it's me or just employees asking questions. So it does get hard. We do only work 4 days a week because I like, in my old jobs, you know, just like, I hated, like, you only have 2 days off for your whole life. Like, that just doesn't seem fair. And I remember when I would get that third day off, I'd be like, oh, I have so much freedom on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we only work 4 days. So like, if I need to like be quiet, and like, I'll just come in on a Friday. But I get to design a lot at work. And I've just, over the last few years of having employees and just all the different stuff, I just kind of like, I'm just used to it getting interrupted all the time at this point. It just happens. But yeah, I get to do it at work. It's no longer, now that this is my full-time job, I'm no longer like, I don't try to do any design work when I get home. Like I try to just turn it off because it's literally my life. I'm surrounded by it every day. I walk in a warehouse full of the stuff. So I try to just let my mind forget about it as much as possible, even though it's pretty much impossible now. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at right now.
Question on the scaling component.
Mm-hmm.
When you made the decision to hire your first employee, and then now as you continue going, what did you look to as that sign or a resource or someone to help you know this should be somebody else doing this now, and I can like afford it, and I'm going to make this a thing?
Yeah, so it's all just pain points. The first employees we hired was because we were getting REI orders every other week, and it was just me and my wife packing orders, and we were sitting in the basement. This was before we had our daughter. We would literally just wake up 8 in the morning and pack all day, and it was just like, I can't do anything. Like we literally can't do anything else in this business unless we hire somebody. So I mean, that's obviously you have to be able to afford it and everything, but it's just pain points. Like I was shipping out all the orders, and then I'm like, I can't do anything. I'm shipping out orders every day. We need to have somebody to order. And then it's like, well, now we're getting all these POs. I'm just entering POs all the time. So like, I need somebody else to do this. Otherwise I can't do this other thing. So that's really it. It's just when and like when it happens, you're just like, I literally can't do anything besides this task. Somebody else should be doing that task as long as it makes financial, as long as it's financially good for you to do that. But it's really that. It's just, you literally are like driving yourself crazy. Like, why am I doing this still? And you're like, I can't grow this business. It can't get any bigger unless somebody helps out. And then this last thing, then we can kind of do a bunch of questions if you want. Basically, I put up here just a bunch of different collectors or creators that have brands. You've probably heard of some of them you haven't. They all do different things. Tuesday Bassan or Bassan, I never know how to say it. She does this really cool brand out of LA. All custom, like vintage dresses and different attire, really cool. Boss Dog, you've probably heard of him, super popular right now. He's probably in every Zoomies. He does like you see like the skulls and like all the different, like you'll see, if you know, you've seen that guy, he's everywhere. Anderson Blue is here. He's really good with social media, really good artist. Be Fresh is my buddies back home. They do like a 80s, 90s retro brand. They're killing it. They basically, their thing is they do markets every weekend. They have a warehouse in Colorado and in Florida, and they just go all out on in-person markets. Posterless, a guy named Adam, that friend online, but he posters t-shirts. Barrett Brooks are my friends that I met doing markets. They're a family, husband, wife, kids, who do custom leather goods. And then More Collection is there are a couple of friends of mine that do an outdoor brand as well. a lot of wholesale, a lot of in-person. And then Yams World's a new guy that I've found about in the last couple of years. He's doing really cool, his own art, going out there, start doing, making his products and selling it in the real world. There's a ton of people to follow, but that's just a little selection of people for me. And then, as always, follow us on YouTube, because we are making videos all the time. We are documenting the whole process. I started that channel with, I thought it was gonna be a long time ago. This is the first video, just me sitting in my one bedroom with a 2-bedroom apartment talking about how I'm gonna start this channel. But we show you all the different places we go, from markets to trade shows, life at the shop, all different stuff. So we're posting content all the time, letting people know that we are out in the world. I don't know if I put that on here or not, but that's the biggest thing, is if you're not showing people your work, you're not letting people know you exist. The greatest artist in the world is probably that person right now. We don't know who they are because they're not telling anybody. Unfortunately, it's just how it is this day and age. If you want to sell products and build a brand, it helps you to let people know who you are, where you are, what you're doing. Any other further questions? That's kind of it for the slideshow part, but I'll answer any questions you guys got. Nada, dostava. Awesome. Thank you guys. We will post this on YouTube as well, so we can play it back. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me, and I'll try to help you with that. I do get a lot of emails, so that is hard, but I try to help out. I think the biggest thing with reaching out to people is if you're sincere and like trying to solve a problem, and you're not just like, hey, who's your manufacturer? Like, people just do that and they don't even know who you are. So try to be friendly with people, get to know them, and then usually it's not you don't have to like pry it out of them. It'll just come out in normal conversation, because they'll just be excited that you're excited about building as well. And that is it. Thank you, appreciate it. And then for anybody who came in late, I have some stickers and books. How many people need that? Is it just you?